Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. We have got a jam-packed show for you today, including, I've got a recap of the Clemson spring game, how some folks are upset. We're going to talk a little bit about some college players and something that we learned last week that I kind of forgotten or I kind of missed. Shout out to the folks already checking in on the chat room. Dakota, Jason, what's up to you guys? Look forward to having a good show with you here to start off the week. We'll also talk about a couple of other things. Some stuff that LeBron James said that's kind of silly. Something the USFL is doing that is actually really, really unique. And every SEC team's toughest non-conference game on their schedule. We'll get into that momentarily, but I got to start with this. An article came out from ESPN last week talking about basically, it says 22 of 130 NCAA FBS level schools say they have plans to provide allowed academic bonus payments to athletes this year. Now, here's the big thing with that. It was a 9-0 decision in the NCAA versus Austin case in last June. But here's the interesting part about it. Schools are allowed to pay each athlete up to right at $6,000 per year as a reward for academic performance. So if you are making good grades and being a good student athlete, you can make $6,000 a year. Wrap your head around that for a second. Now, I remember going to college and not having any money at all. And I'm not saying that I was giving my body up to my college. That sounds kind of weird the way I put that there. But the reality is that a lot of these guys, they put their bodies out there and there's a chance that things can happen to them and they can get injured. Completely understand that. And I am on the side of the players to an extent, but I look at, in theory, what these guys can get. Now, if you're riding around right now and you're in your car and you're thinking, you think back to your college days and how you're eating top ramen and everything else. Hell, some of us probably still eat the top ramen. But anyway, not having any money and things like that, that's part of what you do in college. Part of what you do. But here's the big thing. If you make the academic requirements, you can make $6,000 per year. In addition to right around $6,000, it's actually $5,000 as your stipend each year. So you get about $11,000 a year, which comes out to about $916 a month, which breaks down to $229 a week in cash if you go that route. Here's the big thing with that, though. When you're an athlete, you've got your meal plan, education, housing, all of that is taken care of. So you've got $229 every week as a college student. That's a good bit of money. We're not even talking about the NIL. Just when you break it down like that, I'm not saying that players shouldn't be compensated for their likeness. Please spare me with that. I'm just saying, being a college athlete at one of the 130 FBS schools is not that bad. Man, I'm going to get a free education, and then I'm going to get $229 a week. That's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. And here's the thing, too. If you're doing what you're supposed to do and being a good student athlete, yeah, you should make those grades. Now, it is interesting that it says only 22 of the 130 are paying the actual extra bonus. That's something that is going to come up. And it's going to come up for players that aren't the quarterback, the running backs, the pretty boys. You know, those guys. It's going to come up with your offensive linemen and guys like that. Yeah, if I can make good grades, I can get that extra $6,000, and that's important to them because they may not have the NIL deals that could come to some of these guys. You hear about some of this other stuff that is out there. What was it? The $8 million for the new quarterback at Tennessee, allegedly. Ewers, the young man that went to Ohio State that had like a six-figure deal up there and then left. There's a lot of money that's floating around out there. Now, make sure people have got to understand, though, it's completely different. Completely different. It's not the universities, in theory, paying these guys. A lot of it could come down to boosters, etc. If you want a big-time car dealership or whatever, you could have as basically an endorser the starting quarterback of insert whoever here. So it's one of those things that when you step back, the university, though, is still on the hook for right at about $11,000 a year, $916 a month. Not to include your meal plan, the fact that you're going to school, housing, and everything else. Sign me up for that. All right, anyway, if you want to talk about that, by the way, the list of schools that are out there, Nick Saban's on record saying that they're paying the bonus at Alabama, which, by the way, someone on Twitter was on fire with it and said, like, any of the players at Alabama could make the academic requirements to get this bonus. There's that. Here are the schools. There's 22 schools out of the 130 that are paying up to the $5,900, $5,980 annually. Arkansas, Auburn, Clemson, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Iowa State, Kentucky, LSU, Miami, Mizzou, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Oregon, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Texas Tech, Washington, and Wisconsin. Those are the 22 that say they have plans in place to provide academic bonus payments to their athletes this year. So there's that. I just thought that was interesting. And you know what? Athletes will look at this and they'll say, you know what, I can get an extra $6,000 for going there. Maybe that's going to help on the recruiting front just a little bit. But hey, if you can get an actual athlete to come in there and be a student athlete, knowing that they're going to get $6,000 if they can live up to the academic standard that you require, you're winning. Absolutely winning. All right, we'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the rundown. Michael Dobreski on the line says he misses Darren Horn as a basketball coach. He loved Darren Horn. Shout out to Mike for listening to the show. Appreciate that. 803-978-1832. That's the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the rundown. All right, so let's look at this, the Clemson spring game first. Here's what we got. I got the totals on this. 15-7. The white beat the orange team. The numbers are anemic at best for the Clemson offense. DJ Uiagalelei threw for 175 yards, no touchdowns, was sacked 5 times. That's not good. Cade Klubnik threw for 106 yards with a touchdown and was sacked 5 times. Now, here's the big thing on that. I'm going to read some names to you here. Dominique Thomas, Tristan Rigby, Aiden Swanson. Have you heard of any of those guys? Heard of any of those guys? No. They probably won't see the field much this fall. Clemson didn't play without their 2 top running backs. Clemson also didn't play with some of their receivers. So to think that this is the full Clemson offense that's out there is kind of far-fetched. I do think that DJ Uiagalelei didn't look good. Didn't look good at all. I also think that the best defense that he'll play against is the one that he practices against. There is no Georgia defense on the schedule this year. I hate to be the guy to bring that out. The Clemson schedule, if you look at it, is not exactly something that you're going to write home about. Now, here's the big thing. I don't think anybody expects the Georgia Tech to be a team that's going to do some big stuff this season. Coach Sweeney named Uiagalelei as the starter coming out of spring practice, even though he was outplayed by the freshman quarterback Klubnik. The big thing, though, with all of this is it comes down to this. Clemson's schedule, if you look at the first 4 games, you've got at Georgia Tech, Furman, Louisiana Tech, and at Wake Forest. Just take the first 3 games. The first 3 games on the schedule, you'll have an opportunity to evaluate Uiagalelei, and if he's doing what he has been doing here lately and not able to throw the ball down the field and do what he's supposed to do, then you can make a change. So I think Clemson fans have got to slow down a little bit, just a little bit. Your first 3 games of the season are essentially bye weeks. Wake Forest is probably what? I'd say Wake Forest is the second toughest game on the schedule third after Miami. So after Miami and, of course, Notre Dame. The big thing, though, is that I think Sweeney's playing this correctly simply because if he benches Uiagalelei, he's going to transfer, and then you're going to have a hole in your quarterback roster. So there's that. If you want to call up and talk about that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown, here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Positive Mike says Georgia Tech is an open date with Uiagalelei. Yeah, I think Clemson can line up with their 2 running backs and run over Georgia Tech. It's not at Georgia Tech Stadium. It's at a neutral site. So, yeah. I think the first 3 games are an evaluation period there for the quarterbacks. Now, Klubnik could come in and maybe outplay Uiagalelei in fall camp. Maybe the way that Sweeney should have handled it was, you know what, we're just going to compete at every position and then go from there. I think you give them both a carrot to work hard over the summer. Not let anyone assume that, all right, this is my position going into the fall. Spring depth charts are just garbage anyway. Anyway, we'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Dakota says, I hate neutral site games. They make no sense. Yeah, I don't like the neutral site games either. I think games should be scheduled home and home. I think there's a large contingent of folks that just won't do that. They think, well, you can come here for 1 game or come here for 2 games and we'll go there for 1. It shouldn't be that way. Just shouldn't be that way. Jay says DJ throws a hell of a one-hopper. Should have played shortstop. Oh, man. All he needs to do is steal some signs like the Red Sox and Astros do. He would be a great player. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. By the way, Braves fans are upset. I think the Braves are, 2-2 on the season? And Braves fans are calling for people's heads. That's kind of funny, too. Papa B asks, what are my thoughts on Arch Manning surprisingly visiting with Tony Elliott at Virginia this weekend? I think Arch Manning, maybe he just likes visiting. I don't know. I think he's going to end up probably at Georgia. And then he'll probably transfer out when Kirby Smart does what Kirby Smart does, which is ruin a 5-star quarterback. Stetson Bennett's little brother will be the starter when Manning gets there. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400, of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. As we roll along here on a Monday, we'll look at some SEC schedules here in a moment from 247 Sports, the toughest non-conference schedule on the for each SEC team. We'll get into that when we come back. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, Matt Rob Sounds Good. Appreciate the folks interacting with me over there. But as always, 803-978-1832. More of the rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I don't know how good, we really don't know how good any of these teams are going to be, or how good any of these players are going to be. Hi, Tadil. I think that he worked with him at camp. He did camp at Clemson. Jay, I looked at that and I couldn't find anything. I'm going to share that. Jay sent me a video where a coach walked up and handed a ref money. It was either money or dope, one or the other. It's the old $500 handshake. I don't know how old that video is. I couldn't tell who that coach was. But that was interesting stuff there, Jay. What a mess that was. I truly believe that stuff happens with some it may happen with rec league and high school. I could see it out there. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Out to the phones we go. Welcome in, Peg and Megan. What's up, buddy?
I'm praying that I didn't hear you correctly. I really am. You didn't just say Kirby ruins five-star quarterbacks.
Well, tell me a five-star quarterback that's pretty much succeeded under him and won them a national title. I'll wait.
After the performance we just saw from DJ Pewee Ungalale, you're going to say that? Wasn't he a five-star quarterback?
See, where you fall off the deep end with this is that Deshaun Watson was a great quarterback. Trevor Lawrence was a great quarterback. You're dipping into waters that you don't know anything about, sir. Tread lightly.
Answer the question, please.
Answer the question about what?
After the performance we just saw from DJ Gitchy, I forget his name.
If you're going to talk about the player, at least announce his name correctly. It's Uwe Ungalale. Practice with me. Uwe Ungalale. Go ahead.
Sir,
It's easy.
what
I know
has
that you.
Dabo done?
I know you've got that
What,
Georgia education, and it's really, really hard for you to string words together. But Uwe Ungalale, I'm going to educate you today on the radio. Go ahead.
what has Dabo done with that poor fella? What has he done with him? He's ruined him.
He's
What did he do during the offseason? Send him to the Tebow Passing Academy? That guy is throwing 30-yard shovel passes, what it looks like to me.
You're mocking Tim Tebow, who's a man of God, sir. Do you not like God here on Holy Week? What is wrong with you?
He could have used God to deliver that ball a little better.
You're probably right. Look,
in the NFL.
I think that you and I can agree on this. He has not panned out to be the 5-star quarterback that he was rated when he came in. He has just not been that great.
I'm going to offer some help since
Sure.
I'm starting to feel bad for the Taters.
All right.
We do have another secret walk-on quarterback at Georgia. His name is Jackson Muschamp. You may want to take a look at him now. Start throwing some of that NIL money his way.
The Muschamps have already won South Carolina for a long time now. I don't think they're allowed back in the state.
You know, after the season, I did run some numbers on DJ Mocha Choka Lata.
Uwe Ungalale, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I ran some numbers. He's the only guy in the nation, in the history of college football, in fact, who has more syllables in his last name than he did passing yards at the end of the year. He was awful.
He was. He absolutely was.
And then you're telling me that Kirby ruins 5-stars right on the heels of the train wreck that we watched in that horrible orange uniform all year.
Who did he win? Who did he win the national title with? The defense and a guy that you called a dwarf. So please stop.
He developed a walk-on quarterback that no one else could do anything with. But Kirby turned him into a national title contender.
With that nonsense. You rode
develops.
So the Georgia defense did absolutely nothing last season. Okay.
I never said that.
Okay.
He developed
he didn't develop anything. Stop it.
He went from cold to a diamond.
Why can't you just be honest and say, you know what? Kirby Smart doesn't have the best record of developing quarterbacks. Why can't you do that?
I sure will. As soon as you be honest and say, I stuck my foot in my mouth in the first segment, and on the heels of the train wreck that is itchy, gitchy, gotcha,
look,
right on the heels of us watching a horrible performance.
I would be happy to say that if there wasn't a track record of good quarterback play coming out of Clemson. If there wasn't just a good track record of great quarterback play coming out of Clemson, I would be happy to agree with you. But it's not that way.
You're going into Hollywood mode. You dip into the past when it's convenient, and then you bury the past when it's not convenient.
I'm not burying anything.
Exactly. Oh, no doubt.
No doubt.
I got to run 43-18, sir.
Have a great day. There you go. Peg and Reagan joining us on the program here. If you'd like to join the program yourself, 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Jason says at least he's a little bit thinner, talking about Uwe Ungalale. Positive Mike says Georgia's going to win the next 30 national championships. I don't even know where to go with that. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. Right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. As we roll along today, we're going to talk about SEC non-conference schedule in just a moment. A couple of other things before we get into that, before we go into break. The USFL starts on the 16th, which is this weekend. They're going to use a chip in a football for first downs. It's sort of like how they use in tennis where balls go out, etc. I kind of like this. I think this is going to be good. And, generally, this is something that'll probably end up happening across the country and will eventually dip into the NFL and in college football. No more time for the for measurements and everything else. No, we don't need any of that. The computer chip will tell us. Make the games faster. USFL is also going to have 2 sky cams. I think that's pretty cool. So there's that. Dakota says, I don't want to get Hollywood upset with you for mentioning the Florida Gators out of your mouth, but there's a reason Georgia and Florida play a neutral site game. Okay. That should be. I don't know why they play that in Jacksonville. I don't know. We shall see. If they change it, they should. Anyway, the USFL gets underway this weekend. The Generals at the Stallions, April 16th at 7:30. Gamblers at Panthers, April 17th at noon. Stars and Breakers, April 17th at 4. And they're all over either Fox, NBC, or Peacock. So pick your USFL team. And by the way, all the games are in Birmingham, which is kind of funny. You know, the Tampa Bay Bandits, the Pittsburgh Maulers, yeah, all that's great, but everybody's in Birmingham. It's like Birmingham 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everybody has to go to Birmingham to play. So that's interesting. One other note, LeBron James says it's not his decision about what the team does today with certain players, even though James and Anthony Davis basically had the team set up with Russell Westbrook, where they come in and they had, like, what was it, 4 of the top 75 players of all time. They couldn't make the playoffs. Oh, that's not my decision. And he gets another coach fired. Pretty crazy. They just won the title like 2 years ago. Now, step into my office, you're fired. Get out. NBA is a sham. What a mess. All right, taking your calls at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. We come back, we'll look at SEC non-conference schedules and the toughest game, according to 247 Sports, for your non-conference setup here for the SEC. We'll get into that when we come back. Dakota says the USFL franchise owners are going to spend more on travel to Birmingham than they're going to make. Yeah. I mean, you don't have in a way, that's kind of a cool thing to do. Have everything in one spot. You don't have to spend all that money. So we'll see. I'll probably watch some of the USFL this weekend. Why not? It's going to be horrible football, but at least it's football. We watch tons of bowl games that are terrible every season. Why not watch some USFL in the spring? 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. More of the rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I think I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Bandits. I think I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Bandits. Why not? Yeah, why not? I mean, they're all Birmingham A, Birmingham B, etc. I will give Georgia credit. They're spending the money, man. They should be on top. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app, where we're trying to pick a team that we're going to follow in the USFL. I decided I'm going to be with Tampa Bay, even though they're actually Birmingham, but yeah, we'll call them Tampa Bay. I don't know any of the players on Tampa Bay. I don't know any of them, but we're going to go with Tampa Bay because they're the Bandits. I kind of like that. Being a bandit sounds kind of cool. Better than a general or a stallion. What are some of the other names that are out there? The Gamblers, the Panthers, a Breaker, a Star. No, I don't want to be a Star. A Mauler. No, I want to be a Bandit. Why not be a Bandit? That's kind of cool. I don't want to be any of the other teams. There you go. I've seen, but nobody can get mad either and be like, "Oh, you just picked the team that's at the in first place." Nah, none of that. I'm going to be a Bandit fan. Somebody find out who's on the Bandits roster and let me know if the team's going to be worth anything or not. We'll find out. All right, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Looking at, these are from 247 Sports, by the way, which they have great stuff on their website. Go and subscribe. It's worth your time. Anyway, they break down the SEC's toughest non-conference game for each team in 2022. For Vanderbilt, they list Wake Forest. I'm not going to go into a whole thing with Vanderbilt and Wake Forest. I mean, it's two schools that are tiny, basically, and they're going to play each other. So, yeah, I think Wake Forest is probably going to beat them senseless. Mississippi State, their toughest non-con game is Memphis. So, in addition to playing in the West, they've got to play Memphis. And Memphis is one of those teams that thinks that they're a little better than they actually are. So, we'll see how that game works out. Mizzou will play their toughest non-conference game is on the road at Kansas State. Mizzou's got issues, or lately they've had issues winning games at the beginning of the season. They had a couple of seasons where they just tanked at the beginning of the year. So Kansas State is, according to 247 Sports, their toughest game of the schedule. I like this line. Winning in Manhattan will be an extreme challenge for Mizzou, which likely will not be favored to win after opening the season against Louisiana Tech. So there's that. The true Mizzou thing that would happen, and I'm not joking, most Mizzou fans would tell you this, is that they would go out and probably lose to Virginia Tech and then go blow out Kansas State. That's probably what would happen. Up next is Ole Miss. Their toughest non-conference game is at Georgia Tech. All right. Your toughest non-con game is Georgia Tech. Think about that for a second. The Kentucky Wildcats, their toughest non-conference game is Louisville. And you know what? Kentucky, every season, seems to put together a non-conference schedule that is a bunch of hogwash, to be completely honest. It's not like they're scheduling any teams that are beating down the door of college football. They may schedule Indiana every now and then, but in reality, that's not anything to write home about. Auburn's toughest non-conference game is when Penn State comes to town. They did have a great game last year in Happy Valley, but playing a Big Ten opponent makes a lot of sense. And Penn State, yeah, I can see that. South Carolina, their best non-conference game is Clemson. I think that's pretty much going to be the way it is every year until South Carolina's got Virginia Tech coming up in their rotation. That may eventually end up that way. If Virginia Tech gets back to a point where they're respectable, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. Arkansas's toughest non-conference game is Cincinnati. I tell you what, man, that game, Cincinnati's going to have that set up with, you know what? We caught a lot of crap for being in the CFP last year, not really showing up. Now, if they could come out and get a win over Arkansas, oof, There's that too. Florida, by the way, their toughest non-conference game is Utah, which is one of the preseason favorites in the Pac-12. Here's the big thing with that, though. The game is in Florida, and if Utah comes in as a Pac-12 team and knocks the Florida Gators in the teeth, that's going to leave a foul taste in the mouth for the first year under Billy Napier. But we got to give credit to Florida for they didn't schedule a game outside of the state of Florida. They don't really do that very often in the non-conference. But they did schedule a decent team in Utah. So congratulations for finally getting into the modern era there, Florida. LSU, their toughest non-conference game is against Florida State. That's at a neutral site in New Orleans. Odds makers opened that line at LSU as a 4.5-point favorite. But there's a lot of transition there for both teams with Brian Kelly, of course, taking over, and Mike Norvell still trying to build down there at Florida State. They do say the back end of their slate is treacherous. There's a chance the Tigers could lose their final 3 SEC games in November: Alabama, at Arkansas, and at Texas A&M. Just on paper, as of right now, can you think of a tougher schedule that you would face than that set right there in your final 3 games of the season? Alabama at home, at Arkansas, and at Texas A&M. Man, that's tough. The Tennessee Volunteers, their toughest game on their schedule is at Pittsburgh. Man, Tennessee fans, last season, they were hoping, can we get this win over Pitt? Get this win over Pitt. No. Kenny Pickett came in there and threw the ball around and ended up getting a win there. Now, going to Pitt, where Pitt doesn't lose a lot of games, up there at the catch-up field. It's kind of weird they play in a pro stadium field, but hey, at least they're at a nice stadium. But going up there and getting a win, I think, is going to be tough for the Vols. It could be a season-defining game for them. They do have Southern Cal transfer Kadon Slovis. They do bring back Jordan Addison. And to think that there's a section of people that believe that Pitt doesn't even belong on the field with Tennessee is silly. That game is going to be competitive. I really, really believe that. Now, Tennessee's schedule is tough after they play Pitt, as they've got Florida, LSU, and Alabama not too far afterwards. So for their season to go well, they're hoping for a good trip to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh could throw their entire season off if they can, the Vols season off, if they can actually pick up a win there. I guarantee you both teams have that on circled there up on the schedule. We've got 3 more teams we're going to look at here when we come back. Don't forget, we are brought to you by Mazda of Columbia, MazdaofColumbia.com. Go and get yourself a new car. And they've got cars down there now, Miatas and everything. Greg Hood's got some stuff, so go and check it out, MazdaofColumbia.com. Podcast is up at wherever you get your favorite podcast, whether it's iTunes or you folks with Androids, Overcast, I think is what people use there. Yeah, you can download the podcast whenever you want. It's at, just look for the Rundown with Rob Sanders. And I appreciate folks checking that out. Blog page is also up at foxsportsradio1400.com. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll look at Texas A&M, Alabama, and Georgia, their toughest games on their schedule. We'll get into that when we come back. Once again, I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. No, it's a P. It's a P. Sorry. I am trying to eat right, Dakota, so thank you for that. And I'm working out twice a day. So, whatever. I don't have to compete anymore and anymore. I'm not trying to be the strongest dude ever anymore. So now I'm just trying to get in shape. No, I'm doing like cardio and all kind of stuff, man. I've got a I've got a trainer working with me. Ugh. Don't start there, Jay. Oh, college football pick'em is $20. It's one time. One time. Begging Megan's gonna get in it. Pegging Megan's getting in it. He'll be dead last. Well, welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. Looking at the toughest non-conference games for the SEC for this upcoming season. Texas A&M, their toughest non-conference game is Miami. Yep. I got nothing on that. They do say very few are expecting Miami to win that one, but if it happens, national media will begin referencing the ACC Coastal Program as a title contender. So, yeah. I don't know about that. We'll have to see how it works. The Alabama Crimson Tide, their toughest non-conference game is at Texas. On the bookcase of accountability, I've had this up there for a while. Alabama's going to smoke Texas. I mean, I'm talking like probably 17 points or more. Texas is going to run out of that, out of their stands that look like a women's reproductive organ, and they're going to get hit right in the teeth. Seriously, that's what's going to happen. I do think Sarkisian's a good coach, but I think he's having to rebuild from the ground up there. There were players that were talented there, don't get me wrong, but the two places where they didn't have a lot of talent was on the line of scrimmage. And with that, it's going to come up that they're going to get popped. So with Alabama, their toughest game is at Texas. It's not going to be that tough. It'll be hyped up. Game day will be there, I'm sure. And everybody will be like, man, is there a chance for Texas? The game will probably be over at the half. And finally, the Georgia Bulldogs, their toughest non-conference game is Oregon. Yep. Matched up with their former defensive coordinator, Dan Lanning, the first game of the season. I think there's some Georgia fans that might be like, man, that might be a tough game. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, Lanning, if Lanning gets that win at the beginning of the season, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be looking around like, what happened? What happened? I don't see that happening, though, because I think that Oregon's in a rebuilding mode, too. I really do. And I think that Georgia's defense should lead the way there. And I'd be shocked if Oregon scored more than 14 points. I really would. Now, how well will the Georgia offense do? It may not matter. They put up 21, they're going to win every game probably this season. They'll be challenged in the Alabama game. But it is an interesting matchup there at the beginning of the season with Oregon. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 as we look at the toughest non-conference games for the SEC. We'll look at some of the ACC mixes in here in a little bit. When I look at some of these teams, though, I think that certain teams should have certain games on their schedule. You know, we've talked about Georgia before. I think Georgia and Clemson should play each other. Just from a geographical standpoint, it just makes sense. When it comes to Florida, I think they should play Miami every year. They do play Florida State, but why not? Why not play Miami? Let's go out to the phones and welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hello, Rob. It's Bobby and Casey. How are you?
Bobby, how the hell are you?
Doing well. Doing well. Gonna give you the news on the big bout in Japan, the fight in Japan from Saturday night.
Sure.
They're doing the towel. The Loken stopped them in the ninth round. Murata's corner doing the towel. So I guess that goes down as a technical knockout and show you how nice of a sportsman Golovkin is. He gave him the belt back because Murata was like crying after the whipping he took, plain and simple.
Yeah, I love the sweet science, man. I wish it was more like clean, like we had a clean heavyweight division. I wish we had more of that, but we don't. So
but the lesser weights are the better. And the bottom line is Canelo Alvarez fights May 7th. He whips his tomato can. Then you figure there's going to be the trilogy rematch for Loken and Canelo Alvarez around December, January.
Yeah, might be fun.
And whoever the management team is, whoever lets them just go at it, straight at it, without any politics, you know what? And let the best fighter win, the best boxer win in that trilogy rematch. So, but Canelo Alvarez is huge. He's pretty much like a light heavyweight now.
Yeah.
He's barely staying at 168 super middle. So, us old guys, boxing was a thing back in the day.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate you talking about the sweet science, man. You have a good day.
You have a good day. Thank you, Rob, for letting me talk boxing. I like what you're saying about all the point spreads on the fall football games coming up.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
So May 7th, and I don't know who's carrying it, but I don't want to be a shill for whoever's carrying the Canelo Alvarez fight.
Might be
but
fun,
I'm sure
man.
people can find it live streaming, though.
Yeah, you're right about that. All right, bud. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Love some of the boxing, man. Love some of the boxing. Boxing needs a true heavyweight division. Growing up as a kid, we had Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson would go and knock people out. Then you had Evander Holyfield and guys like that. And then it was, what was it? Lennox Lewis was like a defensive fighter. And then you had the Klitschko's. I don't know. Anyway, looking back at the schedule that we were talking about, some of these teams should play other teams like Kentucky. You're right there. Why doesn't Kentucky and Ohio State play each other? I don't understand that. You're in the same region. Or even Kentucky and Indiana. Or Kentucky and West Virginia. Missouri and Kansas should play each other. Those two teams hate each other anyway. My friends from the Mazodcast, they despise Kansas. An annual football game between those two. Why not? Let's see here. What were the other ones that I wrote down? Texas A&M and Texas should be playing each other every year. They're going to end up doing that again, but it's going to be a conference game when Texas joins the SEC. So there's that. I think that ends up working out pretty good. LSU, someone was telling me LSU and Tulane used to have it where they played every year, but they're not really on the same level there. I don't know who LSU should have, but it seems like they should have at least one other team they could develop a rivalry with. We'll have to think about that. Kirby's Visor says Kentucky would embarrass West Virginia. I don't know. Really don't know. Tennessee, of course, they get Kentucky. I don't know if Tennessee has another rival. I mean, Alabama used to be a rivalry till Alabama won like 25 straight or whatever it is. Kentucky and Purdue. Very good, Dakota. I like that. All right, tomorrow on the program, we will start looking ahead to South Carolina's spring game. Spring games are silly, too, by the way. Did you catch any of Kentucky's spring game where it was like in the middle of a snow, like a big snowstorm up there? Man who used to be on the radio here with us, Mike Morgan, actually called that game and put some pictures out there. I mean, it was snowing in Kentucky. There was probably like 30 people there. Who the hell wants to go watch a spring game in the snow? That's not good. All right, anyway, we'll have some we'll have a breakdown on some of the games coming up this weekend as spring practice wraps up. Kirby's Visor says, yeah, I'd love to see it. What, the snow game or Kentucky playing West Virginia? I don't know if I'd want to watch either one of those. Anyway, I appreciate everybody checking out the show today. Don't forget my buddy Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk is up next. He is the czar of Clemson sports. Be sure to check out his program as he is on every day. He'll have a complete breakdown of the Clemson spring game and everything else you need to know.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Yeah, everybody loves the Swan. He's at Clemson Sports on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast will be up at 5 o'clock. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Hey, welcome back to Neil. So I'm trying to see, like, I might go to ACC kickoff and SEC media days. I might do both. Just so you guys know, I'm trying to work that out where I go to both and broadcast from both. We'll see how that goes. Because SEC media days is in Atlanta. So we'll see. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you later. I'm not saying, what do you want, Pagan?